Over the weekend, a gunman armed with an AR-15 and body armor opened fire at a Texas mall, killing 8 people, wounding 7 others. Now, of course, you might think, well, okay, here we go, another mass shooting, literally America. What's the big surprise?
USA, USA, USA.
Okay, so now what's more interesting about this is the possibility of political motives. Now, the man who opened fire is identified on Sunday as 33-year-old former security guard named Marcio Garcia. So police are investigating. They said, well, we don't have an official motive for this yet. We're still investigating the details. That said, law enforcement sources told the Daily Beast that specifically they're looking into whether or not this is a case of right-wing extremism. Why? Well, turns out the man police believe killed at least 8 people in a mall in Allen, Texas on Saturday afternoon wore a tactical vest with the words RWDS. So it's a patch on this tactical vest, according to sources telling the Washington Post on Sunday. Now, what is RWDS? What do you mean? What does that stand for? Well, appears to stand for Right Wing Death Squad. I mean, you really can't get clearer than that.
Oh my God, he admitted!
That is a popular insignia among white supremacist neo-Nazis and members of paramilitary organizations. Additionally, 2 senior law enforcement officials told NBC News that Garcia both consumed and posted neo-Nazi and white supremacist content on the internet. Gee, I wonder what he believes in. Yeah, weird. According to FBI records obtained by Rolling Stone, his social media accounts contain hundreds of postings of images to include writings with racially or ethnically motivated violent extremist rhetoric, including neo-Nazi materials and materials espousing the supremacy of the white race. The outlet also reported that Garcia may have had ties to a local neo-Nazi group. Weird. I just can't figure out where all this violence is coming from. It must be Antifa. It must be the leftists. Yes, yeah, they're the ones. Yes, of course. No. Here we have another violent white supremacist who espoused violence, going off in big surprise, doing violence. It's not like we didn't see this one coming. This has been happening a lot. I mean, first, again, we have the issue here of the far right that radicalizes people online. And another issue, especially in places like Texas, their politicians make it easier for people to access high-powered weaponry. I mean, I think it's pretty clear what's going on here. It's not hard to figure out. Either there are politicians that want this outcome, or they're the dumbest people on the planet, and I don't think they're the dumbest people on the planet. Look, we've gotten to a place where there are people out there that don't care about dead children when it comes to guns. So if dead kids don't matter to them, why would anyone else matter to them? We see it over and over again. We have a far right in this country that is steeped in violence and can't wait to do violence against the vast majority of this country in order to get their way politically. And yes, there are groups out there who are more than happy to be foot soldiers. There are people out there more than ready to be martyrs for their cause. That's dangerous. The fact that there is a right-wing death squad patch on people's tactical vests, and that's unironically. It tells you exactly what you need to know. This patch has been seen at marches and protests, right-wing marches and protests. It has been seen during the Capitol insurrection. Let me show you just an example. And that's what it looks like on a member of a right-wing militiaman. On December 12, 2020, several members of the Proud Boys, which the Southern Poverty Law Center defines as a hate group, wore RWDS hats and patches as they gathered in Washington, D.C.'s Freedom Plaza to hear, who else? White supremacist Nick Fuentes. To hear him speak. Gee, I wonder what he was going to talk about. I don't know, probably something about how he thinks Jewish people are running the country or the world. That's basically Nick Fuentes for you. Now, He also, at another rally several days later, according to the Southern Poverty Law Center, more Proud Boys were spotted bearing the acronym on their tactical vests as they burned a Black Lives Matter banner. In 2021, the Daily Beast reported that an active duty U.S. Marine who was linked to a private chat group that called itself Right Wing Death Squad was under federal investigation for, unsurprisingly, allegedly plotting to attack the DNC with explosives, rocket launchers, and automatic rifles. Gee, I wonder who the violent ones are. The phrase also appeared on the now defunct subreddit r/the Donald, where users frequently discussed going, quote, full RWDS on racial and religious minorities. And as far back as 2018, it was reported that Proud Boys were showing up to rallies wearing RWDS on the sleeves of t-shirts emblazoned with a different far-right meme concerning Chilean dictator and mass murderer General Augusto Pinochet, saying Pinochet did nothing wrong. You know that reference, right? It references a program of extermination. I mean, all of this is pretty clear. If you're supporting something that says RWDS, you're telling us exactly who you are. You're a right-wing extremist. You're a member of a right-wing death squad. Death to who? Anyone that doesn't agree with them. They're telling us who they are. And they're also arming themselves and training themselves by going into the military. Garcia was in the U.S. Army until 2008 and was discharged over mental health concerns, according to WFAA. So there is an extremist problem in this country, a right-wing extremist problem. So now let me get to the mental health thing for a minute. So we know this country doesn't fund mental health. We know. That's not to say that mental illness is a cause of white nationalism. No. And I'm also not saying that mental illness is a cause of violence. No. That's not what I'm saying at all. But there is the fact that there are some people who could be more prone to receiving this, right-wing, far-right indoctrination, right? To being radicalized due to maybe having mental illness or dealing with the stigmas attached to it. I mean, and I say that because it is pretty well known that the far right looks for people who are vulnerable, and are a little bit more easier to radicalize, and then use them as tools to push white supremacy. Now, this is according to a former white nationalist named Christian Piccolini. He says that extremists see vulnerable people as easy marks for recruitment to their cause. And by vulnerable, I don't just mean people with mental illness. There are also people who are, sort of in the fringes of society, people who are economically vulnerable, people, that have issues like social relationship issues, things like that. Anything that can put you in a little bit more of a vulnerable position, a little bit more of a headspace that could allow someone who is very unscrupulous to come in and manipulate you, feed you false information, and more importantly, provide community. At least this is according to Piccolini. When he was in his white nationalist group, his skinhead group, part of it was because they were acting as a surrogate family and appealed to that sense of belonging. And so that is something that we need to look at. This is something that we need to actually go in and try to head off white supremacists by being, again, a little bit more not welcoming of these ideas, but welcoming of people who are vulnerable in vulnerable positions before they are reached by white supremacists, before they are reached by the white nationalists. RWDS stands for Right Wing Death Squads. Now, people, again, who live in unstable conditions do make them prone to accepting empty promises, according to former white nationalist Christian Piccolini, make them prone to accepting empty promises of paradise on earth or return to past greatness, or what they consider to be past greatness. They exploit frustrations and manipulate them through their uncertainties, lack of meaningful employment, immigration, and the outsourcing they claim threatens people's economic and physical security, as well as the elites they claim to have betrayed people into these poor conditions. And he also says that those at risk of losing something are often more susceptible to radicalization than those who don't have discernible means or who feel overwhelmed by everyday survival. So, meaning, of course, the better off that you're doing, the less likely you are to be, of course, recruited into white supremacist causes. That said, there are plenty of wealthy white supremacists. Those are the leaders. Those are the people who manipulate people. Those are the people who come in and radicalize others. They're and the people that are, recruited are the foot soldiers. And yes, you could be someone who is not white and still push and support white supremacy. So this is a real problem. And it's not one that's going to go away by ignoring it. You have to put the spotlight on it. You have to talk about it. And you have to talk about the issues that lead to it if you actually want to solve the problem.